podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We are now 5 rounds into the United Rugby Championship. The first block is over, and we've got some clear league leaders, some clear league strugglers, and some teams that are anything but clear. We're here to talk about every single game. Let's start the show. I am joined this week, as usual, by Adam and Mohammed. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are on the lookout for a new Scottish presenter. Unfortunately, Policeman Ben has had to declare himself unavailable for the time being on this show due to real life commitments. So if you do fancy becoming a podcaster and you are Scottish or interested in Scottish rugby, please let us know. Get in contact in the comments or email us. The email address should be in the description, or tweet us at URC Podcast on Twitter. Get in touch and we'd be happy to give you your podcasting tape. You can't wait to hear from you. Okay, lads, let's get straight into it with game number 1 of the weekend. In my opinion, clearly the best game of the weekend, the game we were all looking forward to. Glasgow versus the Blue Bulls from Pretoria up in Glasgow. And I thought it was a fantastically high quality game. I guess to save everyone from listening to me talking constantly, Mohammed, I'll come to you first. As the South African voice, what did you make of this game?
I enjoyed it, despite the fact that the Bulls didn't get the victory. I think this is pretty much what I thought would happen. Bulls were in it for most of the game, and then towards the end, Glasgow pulled away. Josh Mackay starting at fullback, soon to be Scottish international, New Zealand born. Yeah, solid team from Glasgow on paper, and then Bulls missing a few players. Would have liked the Bulls to have won and make a clean sweep for the South African teams, but yeah, they fell short. But not in a bad way per se. Yes, they had a try disallowed in the second half. However, it was rightfully disallowed. Nice to see Kurtley Arnitzer back as well.
It was definitely nice to see Kurtley Arnitzer back. And of course, he got that phenomenal try that was ruled out. That was such a shame. But we'll just focus on the Bulls a little bit longer. But we will be talking about Glasgow, of course, the winners of this game, who were fantastic. Mohammed, the on social media, Bulls fans are quite worried at the moment, and some of them are quite angry. They're 3 from 5. They've lost to a good Glasgow team, and they came unstuck against Ulster. What do you think of that? Do you think that the Bulls are truly having a really bad start to the season, or do you think maybe there's a little bit of overreaction going on?
Yeah, if we look at things holistically, they actually had a solid start to the season. They have a few key players missing. I think we tend to forget that Hanekom, the very good number 8, is missing, and then Ulrich Low as well. Guy can play blindside and 8. Couple other players, like their general sort of second choice and or like rotated in Hooker is not there at the moment. Yes, they do have a very good team. I've often been on here talking about how much depth they have. I'm not a big fan of Harold Foster. He's not the player he used to be back there in the Lions, and he basically lost he was really poor in the playoffs last year for the Bulls. But I mean, Jan Serfontein's not available. But it's not only about players who are there and then not there. I would say that it depends on which social media site you're looking at and stuff. I'd say people are a bit more level-headed on Reddit, understanding the broader scope of things. But yeah, every time I open Facebook, people are saying outlandish stuff like somehow Ackerman has to go already, when he's only coached for five games, and 2 of them are away and didn't get a proper preseason. So if I were the Bull supporters, I'd stay calm. There's still a lot to play for this season.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's still way too early to be angry. I understand. I'm not saying that everything's perfect. I'm not saying that, everything's going phenomenally well. But like you come up against a really, really good team in Glasgow here, and they've scored some good tries. And I think that the try that unfortunately will be lost to time now between Willie Leroux and Kurtley Arnitzer combining for a length of the field, absolute worldy efforts. That was a massive turning point in the game. It was rightly ruled out because there was a knock on. If that had stood, I think it's a completely different game. And what I really enjoyed about this game, of all the rugby matches that I've watched this weekend, this one was the highest quality for me. It was 2 very good teams going at each other. asking each other questions, coming up with answers. And I think the thing that really worked for Glasgow in the end, that kind of made the difference, was their fitness. We're looking at the first Bulls try here. But I think in that final 20, Glasgow were just able to steady the ship. They went to their maul, which we know is such a superpower for them, and they just made it work. And I was looking at the stats for this one earlier, and Glasgow had 66% of their rucks below 3 seconds, which is a lot, but it's not like you've never seen that before. But then you see that they had 146 rucks in total. And that is like the amount of energy that they had to expend to make that work and to do that for a full game and to really outlast the Bulls in this one. They took them to a place that they couldn't follow. That's what's really impressive for me. So I agree with you that I think, I wouldn't be panicking just yet because you've lost, yes, but you've lost to a really good team, a really good team. Adam, I don't know how much of this one that you call, but Glasgow just continue to be one of the best coached teams in the league.
Yeah, I think it's what we sort of expected at the start of the year. I think Glasgow are one of those ones to beat. And they will be one of those main stating ones where, when you see a result, I think I didn't quite catch this game, but when I saw the result and I watched the highlights, I just thought that is the way that Glasgow want to be. That's where Glasgow want to see themselves. They want to be beating the best teams in the URC, and the Bulls are one of the best teams in the URC. I think Bulls have grown into their game more since when we beat them, especially. I think they've improved twofold. They beat Connacht, and then they put in a performance against Glasgow. So, I think for Glasgow right now, they are firmly in the seat where they want to be right now. And it's them and the Stormers up at the top of the league. So I think that makes sense completely given this season, the first block that we've just had. I think that's where they want to be. Well, of course, that's where they want to be, but I think they want to be in and around that 1 and 2 towards the end of the season as well.
For sure. And I think based on the evidence that we've seen so far, I think they stand a great chance of being there. The question is, someone did say to me, like, are they peaking at the wrong time? It's a long old season. If they're going to be expending this much energy early on, how sustainable is that? But they're one-time URC champions for a reason, which is eat joint most with anybody. So I just massively impressed by the game. In terms of star players, obviously Jack Dempsey came back in and made a huge difference. But I thought Villy Leroux had his best game for the Bulls this season so far. I don't know, Mohammed, any other players stick out for you?
Sebastian de Klerk, he was pretty solid, nice run there, and obviously Stravino Jacobs, very explosive for somebody that big. So yeah, one to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, game number 2, Lions versus Ulster. For a change, we're going in almost chronological order for now. That won't last, don't worry. But we're starting the show in chronological order. Adam, you were hoping that you would be maximum points this season. You've ended up getting a try bonus point and some, but unfortunately not the W. Again, I get a bit like on the last game. We'll start talking about the losing side first. What went wrong for Ulster in this game?
Injuries. I think this is when we really start to show our depth. The scrum was an issue last week, as it was this week. I didn't really get an opportunity to speak last week because I was quite ill. So I'll sort of touch on it now. I think our scrum isn't good enough. The main bit of a game for us that we need to be working on is our scrum. I think we were like decimated most of the game in our scrum this week and last week. But yeah, we had Tom Stewart start at 7 as well. That's not a normal position to be starting our international hooker in at all. We had a couple of players start as well. Bryn Ward also was a late change to the squad, him making his professional debut in Johannesburg when he was supposed to be originally on the bench because Augustus dropped out. So little things like that didn't really go bounce a ball in our way, which, to be fair, if you would have told me that we would have went into South Africa and we would have got 6 points out of the 2 games, I would have taken your hand off completely. To saying that though, Robert Balakoon, absolute masterclass. He is back.
How many tries was it in the end?
Hat-trick, three in the end. He was absolutely electric. He was phenomenal, even in defense as well. But as I said, I think we were I think we were really tired. We were playing up at altitude as well, which it's one of those things that we need to get used to, of course, playing in South Africa. But we put up a really good fight. Like it's not like we didn't try. I think scoring 31 points in Johannesburg is a massive feat. I think the Lions really capitalized on the fact of how tired we were and also how stretched we were as well. We had three hookers on the pitch at one point, which isn't ideal for a professional rugby team, but we played relatively well. I think out of the seven tries that the Lions scored, three of them were in the last 10 minutes, and I don't think that's really a fair reflection of how we played. I think we were really in the game for most of it, and then that last 10 minutes we dropped off completely. But I think it was quite a good wee effort from the lads, from the Ulster boys, and I don't think we should necessarily be ruining this loss necessarily. We didn't have any of the Ireland players either. We didn't have Hendo, Stockdale, Timoney, or I'm missing one more. But we didn't have those guys either. So I think I think it was good to get a bonus point. We should have got the second bonus point, but as I said, last 10 minutes we were really, really struggling with the oxygen in us, it looked like.
Yeah, for sure. Is it just a classic case of Ulster? Because I said this somewhere else as well, that Ulster, you literally get like three or four injuries and it all starts to fall apart.
I think it's more how well our internationals started, like the likes of I don't think necessarily injuries were an issue. I think it was like weird sort of squad pickings in terms of the fact that we can't clearly um pick a back row instead of a hooker. I think the Tom Stewart one, he played exceptionally well for a flanker. However, he's not a flanker. I think if we would have had an out and out flanker, like an out and out seven in that position, we would have done a bit better. If we would have had Augustus, we would have done a bit better as well. But yeah, I think given our squad, um, as I said, I think we really put it up to them. I don't think it was necessarily well, it was a shock on paper, yes, of course, but I think watching the game, we had a lot of hope in this game. It wasn't like doesn't feel like a loss from other seasons where we looked down and out by the 50th minute. We actually put up quite a big fight for 70 minutes, and that's what I could have asked for from the lads.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. Mohammed, from a Lions point of view, two wins on the bounce after a very miserable start to the season where everybody was complaining. They were on their northern tour. So is it just as simple as home comforts?
It's a bit more than that, but yeah, two wins on the bounce, and they've got twice as many people in the stadium as last week. Last week they had just about 2,000. This week they've got 4,000, so good for them. It's a big stadium though, like 54,000 seater, so it doesn't look that great on TV. But yeah, having watched the game, Ulster were in it for most of the game, to much like the earlier game. Ulster were putting up a fight, and then they sort of lost steam as the Lions sort of gained momentum. So then once the game opened up a little more, Corn Horn got a bit more space to do his thing. Bronson Mills, a very young, exciting inside center, got his opportunity late last season. The thing that stood out for me last season is he had a great 50-22. So he had a solid game again, much like Corn Horn when the game opened up, and Van Wyk could do his play to his strengths. Um, yeah, I was impressed. Asna Bakane, nice little pass there for the try for his prop partner, SJ Kotze. Even Etienne Oosthuizen, somebody who I criticized last season for returning from France, not looking in the best of shape, had a good game. And then late in the game, Ruan Venter and Jared Kearns really sort of tacked the line of Ulster. Because I mean, like looking at the final score, Lions actually scored a try after the Uta, after the 80th minute. Kelly Mpeku off the bench had a fantastic run. And then, yeah, overall, this is what we want the Lions to do. And people might think Ackerman's under pressure, which is not. He just arrived. But Cash van Rooyen's under real pressure, and this will stave off that type of talk for now.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think they look like the Lions again in these last couple of games, particularly in this last game. They do. It is always going to be a bit of a game of sevens that time in Johannesburg. That's generally how it tends to go. You see the really high score lines in those games in particular for whatever reason. But I suppose I was about to say I suppose it puts bums on seats, but maybe that's a wrong choice of words to choose. But
And
yeah,
and the Lions also not trying to tackle Mike Lowry when he has the ball illegally, as opposed to just running at him on the line. That was a bit more intelligent, something the Sharks could have done last week. Because
yeah,
Mike
for
Lowry is
sure.
very, very talented player, but he's not the biggest guy.
Is he
No,
not Ireland qualified, Adam?
who, Mike Lowry?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Belfast. He's from Belfast. Yeah,
Oh, right.
like,
So
but
I assumed he must be not Irish because otherwise I would he surely should be in the Ireland squad because there's no one else in Ireland who can play
oh,
like him.
do you know what it is? It's the fact that Hugo Keenan's there and the likes of Jamie Osborne's there. And if you see the Interpro show on Wednesday, the one that we're going to be doing for the Autumn Internationals in terms of who's going to be picked for the Chicago game on Friday, it's just a weird one. It really is. Like, you'd think Laurie would get picked. I think he would get picked for any type of home nation team. He's sort of like an Irish Cheslin Colby. He's sort of that build and he's that sort of slick. But yeah, I think he's been like fairly unlucky with some injuries, things like that. But yeah, he is a classy operator and he does deserve. He's got one Ireland cap. He scored a hat trick against Italy, and then he passed the ball to James Lowe against the 13-man Italy. But anyway, he should have way more caps than he does. He does.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. Moving swiftly on, no longer going in chronological order to game number 3 of the show, not of the weekend, and we are talking Benetton versus Stormers. Stormers, Kings of the Hill, top of the log, absolute league leaders, and deservedly so. We have to say, based on the start of the season, that the Stormers are the best team in the league. 3 tries to 1 in this one, beating Benetton away from home. 5 from 5 to start the season, 3 from 3 on their opening Northern tour. Look, you can say, Mohammed, perhaps that they haven't faced the top opposition, but the points are on the board. You can't argue.
Yeah, you got to beat the team that's in front of you. So yeah, and the hiss in the team seems to be quite good as well. Some of the social media stuff that they're putting out. Um, yeah, I'm sure Dobson and them are pretty stoked. Interestingly enough, again, close game initially. Then the Stormers sort of pulled away more with their strengths. What was also interesting is that the Benetton fly of Umanga seemed to kick more accurately the further away the kick was, because he kicked some really long kicks, but more in the center of the field, and then he missed a few close by kicks. Stormers rotated somewhat. No Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, but Damien Willemse was there at inside center. That helps a lot. Yuri Matea had another solid game. I think it's impressive for me how they've developed him. He's just sort of like slowly got more and more game time and wasn't overly exposed too soon.
Breakthrough the season so far for me.
Yeah. The front row of Namatongo and Sandy Sunday, the guys who actually started at prop, I was impressed with them, their development. They were sort of unknown entities last season, and they've matured a lot. I'm trying to get the team up here on my screen as well. Oh yeah. One moment. Yeah. Sebastian Sinatla again, fifth start of the season, playing really well. Captain Ron now shifting from inside center to out. He's mostly played outside center. Leiden Zas rotated in this game was good. David Devenager having captained Benetton Treviso playing against them, another guy who supposedly retired end of last season. And then Ben Jason Dixon, right off his recall to the Springbok team for the Autumn Nations Tour, bringing a good shift as well. Salma Murat's back. He's very vital in terms of hitting the rucks and stuff. More the dirty work, the unheralded stuff. And then Zachary Porthen, the guy we spoke about last week, the tight head prop. Yeah, very young tight head prop called up to the Springbok squad. He played off the bench quite well. And then Ollie Kibble making his return, having played for Glasgow, won the URC, and then then left to go play in France, and now he's back at his home. Last time I saw Ole Kibble in person was at Newlands, just down the road from the stadium. Oh, he's a big dude. He doesn't look that big on TV, but he's massive. So yeah. Jean from the A Bit of an Animal show. We're back on Tuesday, so tune in for that. Big fan of Kobus Reinach. Always mentions Kobus Reinach. So Kobus Reinach making his Stormers debut, having played for the Sharks previously and playing for a bunch of teams overseas in England and France. Back in South Africa, and he made his debut for the Stormers off the bench. So yeah, solid win from the Stormers. Going into this break now, so yeah, they'll be super happy because you gotta make the best of your opportunities. So this is a good it's a good platform for them.
Yeah. Adam, reminding you to take yourself off mute. Did you catch much of this one? Did you have any thoughts?
I caught a bit of it actually. There was parts of there was the Stormers game when there was like parts of the Zebra game that I was watching because you put in the group chat, you're like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna watch one of the games we're gonna watch. And I was like, right, okay, I'll stick it on. But yeah, it was I think for the Stormers game, I think for the Stormers point of view, I think they are really like firmly comfortable in whoever they play with at the minute. Treviso been really hot and cold so far this season. There hasn't been exactly a good benchmark to put them on into how their season's going so far in terms of 2 for 3. You would think an Italian team at home against a South African team, that being, well, Treviso, you would think their home record would try and push them along for the run, for the win. But yeah, I think the Stormers are just way too good at the minute. And yeah, deservedly top.
I think what the Stormers have managed to achieve is they're just consistent. And everything that I've seen from the Stormers, they look like to be putting in roughly the same level of performance week in, week out. Is it 10 out of 10 or even 9 out of 10 rugby? Arguably not. But it's a good solid 7 to 8 out of 10 every week, depending on what, facet of the game we're talking about. If we're talking set piece, maybe it is 10 out of 10. If we're talking defense, you're probably getting on for that way as well. Is it the most razzle-dazzle amazing rugby you've ever seen? Probably not the whole time. But they've just achieved that level of consistency that they didn't have before. And yeah, you just know what you're going to get from them, which is not what you can say from Benetton. I do think that there is a world where you could say the Benetton are a little bit unlucky in certain elements of this game. I thought their disallowed try was quite harsh. I thought the knock-on was iffy based on the replays that I've seen. And obviously Umanga missing some penalty kicks. The scoreboard could have looked very different at, late into the second half. So, obviously tries change games, but hey-ho, it didn't happen. And Stormers league leaders, so we have to say congratulations to them. Before we go any further, just want to remind people that if you are enjoying what you are watching / listening to, please consider either subscribing to the YouTube channel or giving us a follow on whatever audio platform that you are listening to us on. We are now over 1,100 subscribers. I don't actually know how many subscribers we're on now. I shall check. We are 1,110. Woohoo, excellent. So the challenge for next week is to get to 1,200. We're not on next week, but I'll check anyway. It's going really well. We're very happy with how it's going. If you are enjoying what you're seeing on the Global Gain Line, reminder that it's not just a URC podcast. It is, as Mohammed said before, a South African specific podcast called Bit of an Animal that is back this week. It is an Ireland specific podcast that Adam is on called the Interpro Show. That will be up this week. We've got a women's rugby podcast that's on a break at the moment. We've got a USA podcast that could be up at any moment. Nobody knows. And we're probably open-minded to getting more podcasts on board as well. Like I said, if you fancy your debut of podcasting, let us know in the comments. We'd be delighted to have you. Right. Next, we are on to an interpod derby between myself and Mohammed. And unfortunately, Mohammed won. And it was the Hollywood Bets Sharks versus the Scarlets, formerly of Llanelli. I guess, Mohammed, you won, so you get to talk first. What did you make of this game?
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So interesting game. Glad to actually finally get a win. Fifth game of trying. We did get a draw earlier this season in Wales against Dragons. Yeah, I said last week that if Jordan Hendrick starts at fly half, we'd win the game, and he didn't start at fly half. He started at full back. Siamasuku pulled up in the warm-up alongside Vincent Koch also pulled up in the warm-up. So for Sia, Masuku, Jean Smith, son of Franco Smith, he started the game. It did quite well. It's probably the most sort of attack passing fly off we've had since Innocent Khadebe. That's sort of a back in the day fly off for the Sharks a few years ago. Very, very talented young player, somewhat diminutive like Mike Lowry, but unfortunately his career got cut short by a knee injury. But yeah, solid. Again, very close initially in the game, and then the Sharks pulled away. We didn't boss the Scarlets at the scrum as we thought we would. We bossed everybody at the scrum this season. Scarlets had Jake Ball and Harvey Coxon at lock, so their lock crisis seems to be abating somewhat, whereas our lock crisis has gotten even worse because we had to call in JJ.
You only had to play Eben Etzebeth and Marvin Uri. It was a terrible crisis.
Oh my God, it's the worst because we're literally missing 7 locks, but so we can't rotate. JJ Skip is on loan now from the Pumas. Didn't even get on the field, so it was like just an emergency part there. Interestingly enough, Lee Marvin Mazibuko started in place of Vincent Koch because Vincent Koch pulled up in the warm-up as previously stated, and he struggled a little in the first few scrums, but then sort of held his own a little bit after that. It seemed to be interesting that our replacement props, Cameron Dawson and the other young guy whose name escapes me, they actually got the better of Scarlett's replacement props. So that's when our scrum sort of got the ascendancy.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, it was good to see Evan van der Merwe on the wing. Very good player. He was deputizing at fullback for a bit the last few games, but he's more effective on the wing. Interesting that Jordan Hendricks didn't do the kicks. It was actually Smith that did the kicks. So Jordan can kick really far, but I guess they didn't take a long penalty. Overall, solid impact of the bench by Lorenzo Julius, attacking wise, and then Pepsi Buthelezzi's 100th game international game, not 100th game for the Sharks against international opponents. So that's Super Rugby and URC and or EPCR. That doesn't include Currie Cup games. That's his 100th appearance. So shout out to him. Another former Baby Buck captain, a guy who can play really well at 8, but often deputizes on the flank. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, my thoughts are Scarlets were better. It's probably the best we played since round 1 against Munster, but obviously we still lost. I think the green shoots in terms of in the second half, we started to throw the ball around and look competent in attack, but the ball just kept going to ground. And by the time we had our replacements on, which were Alec Hepburn, who's not known for his scrummaging, was probably got better towards the end of last season, but still not our strongest scrummaging loosehead, who's Kemsley Mathias, who's the guy who started the game. And Henry Thomas, who last season was the best tight head in Wales. He missed the Wales summer tour for a long-term issue and doesn't look fit. Honestly, he doesn't look able to fulfill the duties, which is really a shame because he's a player I'm a massive fan of. So hopefully he gets back to where he needs to be. But unfortunately, him at scrum time at the moment is just going backwards. But like I said, scored some nice tries. I got a message during this game saying, is this a good game or is it just a bad game with good tries? And I think it's definitely a bad game with good tries. Like the one from Blair Murray, Wales's first choice fullback at the moment, definitely one of the standouts as well. I'm going to show a try from Tommy Rog, my best friend, in a minute as well. So this is what I'm saying. At least we scored tries in this game, which we have been struggling to in the 2 fixtures before this. Sam Costello was our best in ball in hand threat again. I think he got 2 line breaks. Was our top meters on the day as well, or second top, I think, maybe behind Tommy Rog. Great finish by Tommy Rog this, but it's just frustrating. It's just incomplete performances. We're not good enough in the air, and teams know that, and they just target us there, and it gets them joy. And like I said, the scrum in the second half, our starter players as well were really, really poor, and that's really frustrating because when we were good last season, our starter plays were really good. That one from Tom Rodge where his strike play off the scrum was the one good one. Everything else, it was literally like, what are we trying to do here? And it was an all player thing. Like didn't understand it. So and some of the set piece was good. It wasn't all bad. So it's just really frustrating, really troubling for me. But so Scarlet's obviously bottom of the log with no match day points. Not good enough, not acceptable. But I think this game was probably better than the last two, which is an incredibly low bar to set, but it's the truth. So there's at least something. Anyway, moving on to our next game. We're moving through them expediently this week. Actually, no, before we move on, the Sharks topic and something that I forgot to talk about a second ago, we'll come back to it when we get an opportunity soon, is Makazole Mapimpi's ban, Mohammed. 5 weeks for his, I guess you'd call it a tip tackle on Mikey Lowry. What did you make of that one?
Like I said on the group chat, I think it's fair. Players need to learn and there needs to be better discipline. I think I alluded to this last week as well. You're a professional athlete. As a rugby player, this is not rugby league. This is rugby union. You're going to come up against a lot of different body shapes and stuff. So you're going to have to adjust on the fly. And that's what, to me, makes rugby union so fun, in that there can be really big guys like Asanai Abakane, and then there's also small oaks like Mike Lowry and Cheslin Colby. And that gives them certain advantages, but also gives the opposition certain advantages. And so it's like 5D chess on the fly. You gotta make decisions immediately. And if you, Makazole Mapimpi, you're a seasoned veteran, a double World Cup winner, just like Vincent Koch last week. Vincent Koch also lucky not to be suspended this week, even though he pulled up with an injury. You've got to adjust your tackle technique to the guy you're tackling. So there can be no excuses. It hurts us somewhat because last season, I guess it hurt us more when he got suspended, when he got into the off sort of slap about with the Welsh player that got him when we like scraped the Welsh player's face and that type of thing. And then the Welsh player did a similar thing, but yeah, anyway. So you were suspended last year and it hurt us more. This year it might not hurt us as much because we do still have Ethan Hooker, which I'd like to also see play inside center and play outside center. But now he's going to have to play with wing with Makazole Mapimpi suspended. And but we do also have PK Klobakle, we got back from the Pumas. He's a very good player. He hasn't only played one game this season so far. And then on the other wing, we've got Evan van der Merwe, who's like world class. But yeah, there can be no complaints about this. You earned it, and now hopefully it sends a message that not only Makazole Mapimpi learns from this with the Sharks players, but like players in general.
Adam, from the Ulster point of view, obviously it happened to one of your players. It wasn't one of those ones that maybe looked horrendous at the time, but I don't know. What's your take?
I remember when it was called back, and my first thought was, "Oh crap, have we done something bad in the try?" Like, was there a forward pass? I didn't realize they went almost that far back in terms of the tackle. I think as Mohammed said, I think it's pretty fair enough. I think when it comes to you know, you have to be ready for the type of player that you're tackling. You have to be ready. At the end of the day, you have to be safe no matter what size of player that you're tackling. I think I'm going to make a point about the zebra red card later on. That's going to be under the similar lines. Is the fact that you might be tackling somebody that's 6'5" or 5'5". I'm not saying Mike Lowry's 5'5", but you have to make those adjustments because you're playing with people that are 6'5". You're playing people that are 6'2". So it makes it completely fair enough. And I think if you even put it even at a player that was about the same height as Mapimpi, it's still such a dangerous tackle landing on your back like that. But yeah, I think it's completely fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone seems in agreement on that one. So we'll move on to the next game off that positive note of agreeing that a player did something incredibly dangerous. To talk about Cardiff versus Edinburgh, a win for the Diff. 20 points to 19, a narrow one. Johan Lloyd slotting the penalty on the 74th minute to get the job done. Johan Lloyd, I've said for a while, arguably probably the best goal kicker in Wales, and he's shown that again, although he did miss a 2 out of 3 conversion, so it can't be that good. just a morale boosting win. If morale could be any more boosted for Cardiff, 4 from 5 to start the season, and the one that they lost was 2 losing bonus points away in Munster. I think they got to be delighted. It's Edinburgh is a bit of a bogey team for Cardiff, a bit like Connacht was, but now they beat Connacht and Edinburgh this season. That does really feel like a step forward for me. And as you can see from a lot of the stats, a lot of them are very close, and the ones that aren't close are maybe more in Edinburgh's favour. But it's just very heartening from a Welsh point of view to have one team that's at least performing a little bit, and the Edinburgh away from home curse strikes again. It's just every time that they go away from home. I think Sean Everett even referred to it in his pre-match interview. It goes a bit skew-whiff, but Cardiff will be very delighted. I didn't catch tons of this game. Josh Adams scored a worldie. In fact, I think I might be able to pull that up now. That everyone was talking about. I just saw the chat on social media saying, I think Josh Adams has just scored the best try of all time. And I thought, I'll have a look at it then. And yes, to be fair, it is quite good, which is only good news for Wales ahead of the autumn internationals, because I expect Josh Adams to be starting. Johan Mulder as well, South African lad. At scrum half, seems to be making that jersey his own. So fair play to him, playing well. He got a very good finish as well early in the first half for the first try. So I'm just glad that the Cardiff fans down at the Elms Park had a good game to watch. Yes, Adam.
I think Cardiff are going to be an interesting one because I'm looking at Cardiff's fixtures coming up ahead. They've got all the Welsh teams. They've got all the Welsh teams over in that December-January block. They've got Zebra just before that. There is wins to be had there, and if Cardiff at the minute, they're probably looking like the only team that could probably make the only Welsh team that could probably make the top 8. What would your thoughts be on that here in terms of? I'm looking at their fixture list. I'm looking at how they've done well this season. I know that they lost their coach, and this is probably like when is it that the coach's sort of form is going to come out of it? But I think they're standing on their own feet quite well at the minute.
I think so. 4 wins out of 5. So with 13 fixtures to go, generally speaking, 10 wins gets you top 8. So they need to go 50-50 from their last games. They've still got 5 derbies to go. You'd expect them to win to at least 2 or 3 of those. Like you said, Zebra is still to go. Still a fair few home games to go. And like you said, Adam, I think that out of the Welsh teams, they're most likely, and I do think because of how the URC is set up with the shield system, if you're the best Welsh team, you should be making the playoffs because you get to play against other teams that aren't that good, to be frank. But to come on to Edinburgh, we won't labour too much on Edinburgh, a 1-point defeat. But Mohammed, Sean Everett, he used to coach the Sharks. Do you sympathise with Edinburgh fans who are really frustrated with this guy?
It's interesting. When we joined the URC, I didn't really know the makeup of the Scottish teams that well. I wasn't actually aware that Edinburgh actually have on paper a solid team, so much is
Yeah, for
expected
sure.
of them, but they're not living up to it. So maybe a change is needed. With us, we had Sean Everett, and it made sense to go to Plumtree because it's a different voice, similar to sort of a nuance that people might not understand. When the Bulls went from Jake White now to Ackerman, it was an English-speaking South African. Jake White's first language is English to an Afrikaans guy who's Ackerman tries to speak English, but he doesn't always get it right. So it's like a different culture. So maybe they've had a South African coach now for a while. Maybe they should go to a Scottish coach, or like Munster did, someone from outside of Europe. So with us now, with Plumtree being under pressure, we'll probably go with a South African guy. And Stonehouse is front and center for that. Everett's a good, in my estimation, Everett's a good coach. He probably would have won Super Rugby with us that season if it didn't get cancelled in 2020. Because we were doing that well. We would have at least gotten to a home semi-final or home final. We were really, really starting well. So he's somewhat unlucky. But he's not the right guy for Edinburgh right now.
No, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Moving on to the next game of this portion of the show. All Irish derby, Adam. Munster versus Connacht. Now, without leading the witness, I watched 2 Cents review of this game earlier on, and the title was Andrea Piardi of his video. I haven't seen much of the game. I've seen the highlights, but I have to say on the URC highlights, even on the AI generated URC highlights, quite a lot of them are close-ups of Andrea Piardi. So talk me through it.
There was a lot of interesting calls, a lot of interesting TMOs. Piardri sort of does what Piardri does and likes to really show that. I think he's a really interesting referee. Yes, he is very good. This was a big game for him to have, but yeah, it was an interesting one. There was a lot of I'm on the Interpro show group chat. There was sort of like a because I think Ben, who's on the Interpro show, was at the game, was just sort of like, what's this given for? What's this given for? Why is there another TMO? What's going on? You know, it was a lot of stop start. It was a real cagey match. I think for a Munster Connacht game, especially Munster in this era, it's what they needed in terms of there was a big sort of it was to be fair, it was quite a good game in terms of how cagey it was. Um, there was a lot of bashfulness on both sides, but it's another one that I find interesting as well. This is I think get well, bar last week, which is the one I missed talking about. This is another Munster game where they've won it because of a conversion, and the other team just hasn't had any conversions. JJ Hanrahan,
Was it windy?
it didn't look it. It didn't look it. I think it was really interesting the fact that JJ Hanrahan made one kick and that just decided the game in terms of that sense. But yeah, I think with Connacht as well, they've really struggled with the place kicker since Jack Hartley's sort of going out of the picture. I think Josh Owoni is a really good player. I think he's a really good running full fly half. He's very good at like running and picking out passes.
He had
But
a couple of great intercepts in this game. Unfortunately, one of them was for Munster.
well, yeah. There was a couple of good intercepts, and as you say, one of them was for Munster. But I think it was for the tries. I think the Munster tries are very good. I think the Connacht winger, Ralston, his name was. He was pretty quick and pretty snappy in terms of his tries. I think this might be the first try.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is nice from Ione, to be fair.
yeah.
Ioane.
I think it's really interesting with Owoni, is that he last season he didn't necessarily play that well. I think we're seeing a lot more of what he wants to play like this year. But the only issue is, as I say, it's place kicking. It's going to be the same with Munster. If they would have made their kicks, they would be what 21 points up. If Connacht would have made their kicks, they would have been 21 points up. The fact that it's 17-15, it makes it feel a lot cagier than it was as well. But yeah, I thought it was a very interesting game. I thought it was a really good derby. I always really like the Munster Connacht derbies because they always have that bit more. Well, it's the same with every Interpro, but it's that I feel like from an outsider looking in, it's a bit more oomph. It's a bit more. It's another very good intercept try. It's almost Jacob Stockdale-esque if to put it like as an Ulster fan.
Mm.
But yeah, it was very, very cagey, very I think it's what Munster needed. I think they are also fair enough in their second position in the URC. I think they are one of the best teams in the URC at the minute. Given the fact that Connacht and Munster were both without their Irish internationals as well. That's another thing that we need to add on to that. But yeah, I think it was a great win for Munster, and I think they wouldn't be. I think the only thing they would be necessarily mad about is the fact that they didn't get a bonus point. Um, because at the end of the day, that's where it's going to come down to that top four position. It's going to be the bonus points.
Yeah, I think looking at the stats, Munster deserved winners, probably the better team. The Piardi decision that I've seen most talked about is the one where he's said he's given held up. And then the TMO has said the ball is on the ground. And then Piardi's going, well, I've seen that they're over the try line, so it must be a try then. It's like, well, no, you've seen that it's held up and you're there. So sometimes the referee's got the best view of anybody on the pitch. So that's frustrating. But yeah, again, a bit like this. Sorry,
last season we had a Munster game with PRD was the center of attention as well. So yeah, it's him again. Interesting. Munster missing a bunch of players to well, not as many as Leinster to the Irish team, but no Brian Gleeson on the field either. He wasn't called up. It's just interesting for me to see Brian Gleeson run out for Munster. I almost think Michael Fassbender's going to run out for Ulster next week.
Do you know, there was actually, to be fair, to add on to like the Munster team as well. I think when you look at that back row of Hodnett, O'Donoghue, and Coombs, you're like, how do none of them have more Ireland caps? Do you know what I mean? When you look at it, the scrum half as well. I think for Connacht, well, Ben Murphy, he's another one that you think, how's he not got in the Ireland squad as well? There was a couple of players that you would think that would have deserved. Michael Milne, in the Munster jersey as well. He should have been picked as well. But yeah, it was a very interesting game. I think it was a great game to watch, and I think it's towards December time where they play again. Hopefully with all the Ireland internationals in it, because that would make a great game as well down in Galway.
For sure, for sure. Since we're talking Connacht, we need to talk about the big thing that everyone's talking about this week, which is the Young Hendrik Wessels ban. Obviously, we need to be very sensitive because we're a URC podcast with voices from all four shields, or only three of the shields at the moment. So we need to be sensitive to all points of view, and there's some very, very strong opinions on all sides of this debate. So we don't want to like go out windmilling with hot takes here, but I guess, Mohammed, do you think you can outline why so many South African fans have such an issue with the Jan Hendrik Wessels ban?
I don't know. I've not seen I've seen a mixed reaction, and I've not seen an image where it's clear what he did. So I know tune in on Tuesday for a bit of an animal, because Jean, who supports the Bulls, he's got very strong opinions on it. But he's taking it in his stride, is more like joking about it and stuff and sharing memes and things. So he's not taking it too seriously. It's a long ban, and he's a vital player for both the Bulls and is somewhat of iconic because he's such a explosive front row forward who can play hooker and lucid prop. So like the Makazole Mapimpi thing, but maybe a bit less clear cut, because I've not seen an image and or a video where it's clear that he did what he's being accused of, and that type of thing. So I'm a bit ambivalent about the whole thing. What are your thoughts, you?
It's a question. My thing is that Murphy hasn't gone to hit him for no reason. Now, obviously, the other thing that we're talking about is this, people saying that Murphy hasn't got a ban, even though he clearly goes to strike a player, which is odd. So Murphy doesn't go around hitting players for no reason. So he's reacting to something. Just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But it comes down to like the kind of judicial process of the emphasis that is put on just the testimony from Jack Murphy, who is incentivized to put across a different story, because it stops him from getting a ban from striking a player.
Well, even if he did, if it was clear he did that, he should also have gotten a slight ban. Because generally in rugby, people get actually punished for their reactions because the referee tends not to see what happened initially. So you're encouraged when you play rugby not to react, that type of thing, sort of like roll it off. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so that's my kind of thing. And why would Jack Murphy, make it up? But I don't know, Adam, what's your take? Because there's been a lot, like I said, a lot of strong feelings.
I think Murphy's reaction of his distress as well. I think, it has to be that case of, yes, there wasn't necessarily any video footage, but I don't think a player would react that way in a professional scape that we are in, but well, that they're in, not that we're in, but we're watching. I don't think he would have reacted that way if it didn't happen. I think it's one of those that I don't think you necessarily need video evidence. I think it's really well evidenced, the fact that how he reacted, and he also gave that sort of like he must have given like the type of like the example as well. But it's a really difficult one when it comes to that idea of TMO at the minute. Because there's a lot of TMO talk in terms of like, Holly Davidson didn't actually see the incident happen. Addison didn't see the incident happen. I also think as well that yeah, Murphy would have went for a strike. That would have been like a week or two ban as well. But as I say, I don't think he would have reacted if it, you know, I think the 9 weeks is perfectly acceptable for something like that. I'm sure it because as we say, it's a really weird occurrence that shouldn't really be happening in rugby pitches at all. And it seemed intentional as well from the way he would have based it off as well. Well, his testimony that he gave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an odd one from the judiciary process of a 9-week ban being handed out on a testimony. I think the thing for me is I've seen so many examples of players alleging things and it not leading to anything in the past. So this is kind of the first time that I've seen that a player's kind of allegation has just been translated straight into a ban. I can't recall that happening before. So that's what makes it weird, and I think that's maybe what's gotten people confused. And also Murphy not getting a ban himself for striking, but I also am fully of the opinion that Murphy is reacting to something when he goes to strike. So I don't think that he's lying, but it's from the kind of process I think people are confused. So yeah.
It weirdly sets a dangerous precedent because somebody next week could jump out of a ruck at URC level or club level, deck the other guy and say, "Oh, he grabbed me by the."
Yeah.
You know that, but
That's where the sensitivity needs to be though, because I think with
Yeah.
with how it is, I think what they're doing is they're basically like, listen, we've had this serious allegation, we're just going to cut up right off the bud. You know what I mean? I think like for that, it's Mohammed, I think they're just trying to like stop it like completely dead.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, like years ago, we had Schalk Burger get suspended for accusation of eye gouging. Yeah, that type of thing.
mhm. Yeah,
And
so
there wasn't video evidence for that either. So
Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
Right, need to move on. Oh, Malachi Fekitoa has also been banned. It was announced today for what he did against Edinburgh. So it's taken a full week, well, 8 days, 8 or 9 days, for them to dish out this 3-week ban. I guess they've been busy, but we'll talk about some more red cards that got dished out in a bit. But next onto the final portion of the show, talking about Dragons versus Osprey. So I get to do most of the talking. Aren't you lucky? So 19-all draw. So my heart was racing towards the end of this one because the Dragons were pushing for a win, but it was one of those where you're like, they're definitely throwing an intercept. That's what I felt. I was like, this is going to an intercept. And there was a point where the ball went to ground and the Ospreys scooped it up in and around halfway, just over halfway. And you're thinking, oh God, it's happening. But it's kind of like scant consolation, but the Dragons are getting closer to a win. They should have won this game. They should have beaten the Sharks. So, 2 performances at home where the performances merited a win. Unfortunately, Tinas de Beer is going to come in for stick, which I don't like, but it's true that he's missed 2 kicks at goal in this one, or 3 kicks at goal, at least 2. And he obviously didn't go for the drop goal in the other one. To be fair, Dan Edwards has also missed a kick at goal in this game. But I don't know. Let's take a look at the stats to talk about it. So the Ospreys offloaded more and they had a lot more clean breaks. So 7 clean breaks to 1, I think is a pretty stark stat. It wasn't great weather. The Dragons' attack didn't look great, but the Ospreys just kept giving them in. So if you look at the number of tackles, 223 tackles to 109, that shows how much possession the Dragons had in the Ospreys half. But really struggled. It really wasn't until the Ospreys gave away a penalty and gave the Dragons a 5-meter line out that they ever looked like scoring. It didn't look like they were going to cut them up particularly well. Aaron Wainwright looked good as their attacking threat, but that was kind of about it. The Ospreys were 2 scores ahead with 15 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go. And let it slip again, which is exactly what they did in this fixture last season, was they were up 2 scores and somehow lost. I think both teams will be frustrated. I think the Ospreys will be quiet. You know, the Ospreys are managing the PR very effectively at the moment, and they'll be quiet about this one. They've got a very good habit of not dwelling on disappointing results. Unfortunately for the Dragons, all of their results are disappointing, so there's no other way for them to look at it. But yeah, I mean, I'll see if I can pull up some of the try highlights. But Dragons, it is getting sort of closer, I guess. But I don't know. Help me here, Adam. I'm running out of things to say.
I think with the Dragons is that they should have won against the Sharks, as you said. It was one of those that a drop goal would have done, and the scrum half didn't see that De Beer was in the pocket. I feel like with how, oh, by the way, he's absolutely rapid. Kolkazania, I have butchered his name there for a second. But yeah, I think for the Welsh teams at the minute, it's a sense of confusion and a sense of unsurety coming through. And I must say that the WRU's decision to cut it down to three teams isn't good enough. It like isn't good enough. They should keep the four teams because of how as you can see, you've got the likes of Cardiff playing very well. And it always feels like Dragons knock at the door. The same with sort of Scarlets and Ospreys. I think for a good league that you need the four Welsh teams to be really murdering, but with the Dragons, it's when they get their win, it's going to be big, and you feel like they are going to get that win at some point, and I feel like that's better than what they did last year. Like you can actually see a win coming out there, and I feel like De Beer is like my hipster rugby player choice. Like, oh, who's your favorite rugby player? Oh man, do you hear about Tinnis De Beer that plays for Newport? He's definitely like he's one of those players that I don't know why, but I feel like this year I've
I
sat
think he arguably outplayed Dan Edwards. I'll talk a bit more about Dan Edwards in a second, but I think ball in hand, he's great. It's just that unfortunately the kicking is not great.
Oh no. No, it's like Joshua Oni. Like the hipster's choice, fly halves that can't kick. And I don't know what it is about this season, but I've noticed that the place kicking has been really, really something that's weirdly throughout all these different games that I've noticed as well, is that the kicking hasn't been very.
I think it's a global thing, to be honest. I think if you look at goal kickers around the world, you've got Tomo Ramos. If we stick to men's rugby, keep it simple. You've got Tomo Ramos. You've got Tommy Allen for Italy. You got Joris Sigons, who's French as well. Probably not going to be any kicking at test level.
Prendergast and Crawley, who sometimes can have really iffy games off the tee as well. Um, it's a bizarre one. You've got Marcus Smith, who can also have iffy games as well, at 10 for England. I just find it really interesting how place kicking, I don't know if they're overdoing it. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know, are they overdoing place kicking? Is that the science behind place kicking? John Cooney's kicking coach is a very good one. So, former Ulster player, his kicking coach Instagram page is very interesting because he like he would analyze everything, but like, is it that hyper analyzation of things that are making people overthink their kicks, or is it just the wind this year is particularly weird?
Maybe. I do think, obviously, South Africans will be shouting at me, go, what about Andre Pollard? And like, okay, his goal kicking's not been that great recently. Sasha's goal kicking has gone a bit weird. Manny's goal kicking's actually got better. I just think it's globally, as a rule, goal kicking isn't what it used to be. And I think it's partially that taking the three is so out of fashion these days that teams don't do it. So it's become less important, I guess, in this bonus point world. Just on Dan, I'm going to bring up this Ospreys try again, because I just want to talk about Dan Edwards for a second. A player that I decided in this game I'm going to specifically watch how he plays, because he's going to be the first choice Wales 10. He gets a second touch here, so he gets the ball there and doesn't do much with it, but he wraps around. He's got deceptive pace and gets a second touch and puts Hugh Sutton away, who eventually gets the try assist. There were shouts for this being a forward pass. I would have liked to see the team though take a look at it, but it is what it is. So he's clearly a skillful player, but he's not the Ospreys. The Ospreys plays a lot off 9. And so, obviously Dan Edwards did finish with the second most passes of any player on the pitch. But he lets Jack Walsh take over at first receiver a lot. Dan Edwards, I didn't stand at first receiver tons. And when he does come in at first receiver, it's normally a few phases into a move. He doesn't, unlike Sam Costello for the Scarlets, who's always like, give me that goddamn ball. He's kind of not like that. You know, he's a 10 that stands back and doesn't get involved in a lot of the games. And where he stands defensively, the Ospreys, I think, have identified that he's not the best tackler. And so when they're defending lineouts, he stands outside 12. When it's just general play, he's in the backfield, and Jack Walsh comes into the line quite a lot, I noticed. So I'm interested to see how that translates to Welsh level. If he is going to be the starting 10, which I expect that he will be. Steve Tandy, obviously being a defense-first coach, how will he work with that? Will he just expect Dan Edwards to stand in the 10 channel to defend, which is something the Ospreys have clearly made a decision that they don't want? And then in attack, you know, is he gonna let Ben Thomas, you know, take over running, you know, the to and fro of attack and stand back and, you know, pick and choose his moments and get those second touches? You know, it's a narrative that I'm eager to watch. From just on the Welsh point of view with the regions and things, it's too big of a topic for us to talk about in this show. If you go onto our sister channel, WRAP, WRRAP, they'll be putting a pod out on Monday night. Well, they'll cover that in depth. Their podcast can be quite long, and they'll be talking all about that. So search for WRAP for the full view on the decision to cut a region. It's too big for me, but yeah. Last one then, Adam. Leinster versus Zebra. One of those games where at first you're kind of thinking, well, there's no point of watching that. And then you think, oh, hang on. Leinster are missing loads and loads of players, and Zebra have been all right this season. So maybe there is a point in watching that. And then you see the first half scoreline, and you think, I will watch that. And then you see the final score, and you go, maybe I'm glad I didn't watch that. So what do you think?
Well, it was a really interesting game. There was a lot to sort of pick out in this game. There was 2 yellows that were sent into reviews that both eventually turned into red. Osborne with a sort of he ran into a player that was in the air. And he wasn't looking towards the ball. He just sort of ran into him, which led to the player going down on his back. So that was given as a yellow. Review bunker into the red. And yeah, I think it was a red. I think beforehand, I mentioned to Hugh just before the podcast started, I think this game to me really showed why 20-minute red cards don't really work. The fact that you can bring on, especially for the zebra red card, because the zebra red card was bad. The scrum half, sort of lowered himself down, didn't have any type of go ahead in the tackle, sort of grabbed his knee and twisted it completely in the tackle. Did he mean to do that? No. But was that a dangerous tackle? Yeah. It was a yellow to a red in the bunker as well. But I'm not here to talk about red cards anymore. I'm going to talk about the game. So, yeah, Leinster firmly out of the bat within the first half an hour, scoring was it really 4 really good tries, to be honest with you. Socorro was really good at 6 for Leinster. He was a classy operator. I think he's been a shining light in this sort of Leinster squad that are really struggling to defend, to be honest with you, at the minute. I think with the Zebra tries, it was just an issue of defense and sort of heads up rugby. The scrum halves try, the Dominguez try for Zebra, he tapped the ball and just ran under the posts. So it was like really good scrum half play. But after that, Leinster just completely turned the screw. And in the second half, they brought on the likes of like RG Snyman, who came on and scored. Harry Byrne played quite a nice game at 10.
Player of the match again, his second of the season.
Pardon?
His second player of the match of the season.
Yeah, second player of the match of the season. Does that necessarily warrant an Ireland call-up? No. No, not in my eyes. I think if you play, I'd rather like see players perform well against better teams. Like I knew necessarily Zebra aren't necessarily a team to sort of write off at the minute. However, they did play a really nice, exciting brand of rugby. I think with the Leinster sort of setup, we're talking about attendances, wasn't a greatly attended game. I think they said about 12,000 in the Aviva Stadium.
That's still more than most of the league gets, to be fair.
It's still, well, yeah, it's still more than most of the league. I think it's just because it's the Aviva. I think they really need that RDS back, because the RDS is perfect for these games because a 12,000 in RDS makes it seem a lot fuller. But yeah, Harry Byrne looked really well. I think, of course, having RG Snyman come off the bench doesn't, I think any team would benefit that. Coming off that type of caliber of player coming off the bench. This is a Leinster team without their Ireland players as well, which is really interesting because I'm looking through the team and I'm struggling to find a player with an Ireland cap. Will Connors has got an Ireland cap. But yeah, it's really interesting how this Leinster team played. I think they played it really well.
Some of these Leinster names are made up, surely.
Which
Like the Hugh Cooney and Andrew Osborne. It's just like
Hugh Cooney's a great he's going to be a nice wee operator at 13.
it's the pro evolution version of the players.
Oh, Bobby Sheehan, Dan Sheehan's brother at replacement hooker. If you're looking for a pro Evo name,
Scott Penny not got an Ireland cap.
Scott Penny's not got an Ireland cap now.
Well,
Luke McGrath's got an Ireland cap, and Harry Byrne's got an Ireland cap, and Tector doesn't, I don't think. But
Luke McGrath's got an Ireland cap.
yeah, Luke McGrath's got one. But like when you look at the other, like when you look at a Leinster team, you would say this is like their C team, but they still have a two-time World Cup winner.
Bobby Sheehan. Yeah, pull the other one. That doesn't exist.
No, Bobby Sheehan, the Dan Sheehan's brother, who they've got from a lab because he accidentally sneezed on a tissue in the Aviva. He sneezed on a tissue and then made Bobby Sheehan. But also,
How did Casper Gabriel do when he came off the bench?
he
He's been
came up.
heralded.
He missed it. He missed the conversion, but he only came on for 5 minutes. But well, I tell you what, Casper Gabriel, he's became a bit of a meme on the Interpro show. Casper Gabriel, Hugh, do you know much about him?
This is the guy they signed from the Stormers and everyone lost their mind, right?
Nope.
No.
This is Austrian-born Casper Gabriel.
No.
Yeah. And then Zebre have Miguel Prinsloo, who I didn't know anything about, but while we were talking now, I looked him up. Why? Because he's in the Italian team and his surname is Prinsloo. So he went to high school. He was according to the internet, he was a high school rugby standout, but he's Italian origins. So now he was at Benetton's team last season, but now he's at Zebre. So 19, quite a big guy for scrum half. So make a note. We'll be the first podcast to have give him a shout out.
I'll make a shout then. Bobby Sheehan, he's going to be playing within 2 seasons. Anyway, Casper Gabriel, he's a Austrian player, Irish qualified because he was brought over to play rugby in Dublin essentially. He's a fly half. He's going to be the next Sam Pendergast because we're not going to hear the end of him. But he missed a conversion within 5 minutes, so I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, he seems to be a decent enough operator.
He's holding a spade.
Yeah, he loves spades. It's the fact that he's born in 2000.
He loves spades.
Birth country Australia? No, it's actually Austria. I'm not sure why they have Australia, but it's Austria.
Oh, because it's the URC website. That's why.
Yeah, the URC website, which had Harry Byrne as well. But yeah, a really interesting player to look out for in the future. But I tell you what, that Leinster squad, we on the Interpro show group chat, it was sent into the group chat, and we were like, "Oh, I don't know many of these players." And then I made a very good point that we're going to see most of them in the Six Nations if Andy Farrell.
That is true. That is true. Anyway, we've reached the end of the show finally, and there's no URC next week because it's the start of the November internationals. We're not going to be doing URC Rewind during the November internationals. Why, Hugh? Because there's no URC matches, but also because now that on Global Gain Line, we've got the Irish specific show and the South African specific show, we'd literally just be talking about the same games over and over and over again. So we're going to leave it to the specialist pods to take over from that. So we shall be back when round 6 of the URC rolls around sometime in December, I guess.
Isn't it?
Sorry?
8 November, I think the next Ulster game is on 28th of November, I think.
Okay. So a month and 2 days to wait. So anyway, we should see you then. Thank you to Adam and thank you to Mohammed.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers.
And thank you to everybody for watching. Enjoy the rugby, and I hope everybody's team wins. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.